So they just announced a list for the 92nd Annual Academy Awards. Some snubs, a couple surprises, I guess, but a lot of the stuff I feel like was fairly predictable. We kind of knew going in what the hot movies of the year were. Luckily, the Golden Globes kind of helps a lot with that. So anyway, I'm just going to be breaking down my thoughts on the entire list. Keep in mind, I have not seen every single movie that was nominated. I've seen a good chunk of them, and I feel like I've seen enough of them to kind of form my own opinion on this. I'm not going to talk about every single category, but we're going to be going through the main categories. By no means do I think the Oscars are the bar that we should judge a film's quality by, because honestly, every year there's a lot of really freaking great movies that get snubbed. Like horror movies, some of my personal favorite movies are probably... Somebody just walked by outside. Looked right into my apartment. Alright, right as I'm talking about horror movies. That was fucking creepy. Horror movies, I think, are some of the biggest showcases for cinema as far as the technical artistry goes, acting. Lupita Nyong'o completely got screwed out of her Oscar nomination for Us. We'll get into that. Starting with Best Picture. The Best Picture nominations are Ford v Ferrari, The Irishman, Jojo Rabbit, Joker, Little Women's, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Marriage Story, Parasite, and 1917. So honestly, not a huge surprise, this list. The only one that I was kind of surprised to see on there was probably Jojo Rabbit. Taika Waititi, bless you, is a great director, and I'm glad to see that he was nominated for that. I mean, if it were up to me, I would have nominated him for Thor Ragnarok, but who fucking cares about my opinion, right? And then I guess Parasite was kind of surprising to be on there just because it is a foreign film. It's the first Korean film to ever be nominated for Best Picture. And from everything I've heard, it definitely deserves the praise it's getting. The only movies I was kind of surprised to not see on there was Knives Out. I thought Knives Out would get a nomination for sure. Maybe they're still pissed off about Rian Johnson for The Last Jedi too, who knows. Lighthouse and Uncut Gems I thought might make it on there. It's not really super surprising that they didn't, but worth mentioning, I think. Breaking down the actress in a supporting role category, we have Kathy Bates for Richard Jewell, Laura Dern for Marriage Story, Scarlett Johansson for Jojo Rabbit, Florence Pugh for Little Women, and then Margot Robbie for Bombshell. Now I'm going to be honest, I haven't seen most of these. I've seen Marriage Story. Marriage Story was awesome. Laura Dern, she was good in it, okay? She was good in it, don't get me wrong. Does she deserve a Best Supporting Actress nomination? Florence Pugh, I was kind of surprised to see on that just because she's a very new actress. She's kind of an up-and-comer. And that's really surprising that she got nominated right off the bat, especially considering that cast for Little Women with Saoirse Ronan and Emma Watson is pretty stacked. So the fact that she was able to stand out from that crowd, good for you, Florence. And I still have to watch Richard Jewell and Bombshell, so very helpful on that one. All right, moving on to actor in a supporting role category. We have Tom Hanks for Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, Anthony Hopkins for The Two Popes, Al Pacino for The Irishman, Joe Pesci for The Irishman, and Brad Pitt for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Tom Hanks could be nominated for every fucking movie he does for the rest of his life, and I would not be complaining. He's America's sweetheart. He's a national treasure. We protect him at all costs.
I really like you. Do you want me to? Yeah.
Remy. Sorry, that's my girlfriend's rat, and he's very inconsiderate when I'm filming videos. Can you stop slurping water? Must be pretty fucking dehydrated. All right, wrap it up. Joe Pesci, Al Pacino absolutely deserve their nominations. Oh my God. How much water can you fit in your tiny little body? As I was saying, Joe Pesci, Al Pacino absolutely deserve their nomination. Joe Pesci, I believe, came out of retirement for this movie, and they were phenomenal in it, but they're always great. Brad Pitt, I I'm kind of confused about why he was nominated for Best Supporting Actor. I guess you can't have two actors both nominated for the same movie going for the Best Actor Oscar. Animated feature film, kind of surprising to see Frozen 2 didn't make the cut. I haven't watched it yet. I thought the first Frozen was extremely overrated. I was more of a Tangled man myself.
I didn't want to have to do this, but you leave me no choice. Here comes the smolder.
But worth mentioning, Toy Story 4 was on there though, of course. For adapted screenplay, we have The Irishman, Jojo Rabbit, Little Women, The Two Popes, and Joker. Original screenplay, Marriage Story, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Parasite, Knives Out, and 1917. So this, I believe, was the only category Knives Out was nominated in, which honestly was really freaking surprising. I feel like it could have been nominated in at least 3 or 4 more. I would have definitely thrown it in there for a Best Picture nomination. Daniel Craig, I feel like, could have gotten Best Actor in a Leading Role nomination. It could have been nominated for Best Editing for sure. So Knives Out, I think kind of got screwed on this one. And then Actor in a Leading Role, we have Antonio Banderas, aka Puss in Boots, for Pain and Glory. Leonardo DiCaprio for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Adam Driver for Marriage Story. Joaquin Phoenix for Joker. And Jonathan Pryce for The Two Popes. Honestly, if Leo, Adam Driver, or Joaquin Phoenix win this, I'll be ecstatic. I think they're all phenomenal actors. The standout for me in this was probably, had to be Joaquin Phoenix. I mean, I feel like his performance in Joker was just unsettling and hard to watch at certain scenes, but you really felt an empathy for the guy that he was playing, and even when he was doing all the horrible things, you knew where he was coming from because you saw all the shit that he went through earlier in the movie. Leo, my favorite actor, how can I ever be disappointed when he gets a nomination? So I'm glad that he's on there. And then Adam Driver was phenomenal in Marriage Story as well. Out of those 3, I'd probably say Joaquin, Adam, Leo, as much as that. Or maybe, I'd say Joaquin and then Adam and Leo both were fantastic, but I think Joaquin's the standout out of those. Then we have Actress in a Leading Role, Cynthia Erivo for Harriet, Scarlett Johansson, Marriage Story. So ScarJo got a double nomination, which I don't know that that's happened before. She might be the first actress to actually get a double nomination, because she was nominated for Leading Role and then Supporting Role in Jojo Rabbit as well. Saoirse Ronan, Little Women, Renee Zellweger, Judy, and Charlize Theron for Bombshell. Honestly, that seems pretty fair. I can't really think of anybody that deserves to be on that list that's not. Apart from Lupita Nyong'o, I feel like she was phenomenal in Us, and honestly really the only female performance of the year that I was blown away by. But once again, the Academy really does not recognize horror movies for some freaking reason, and so she was snubbed out of that. For Best Director, Martin Scorsese for The Irishman, Quentin Tarantino, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Bong Joon-ho for Parasite, Sam Mendes for 1917, and Todd Phillips for Joker. I'm kind of surprised the Safdie brothers didn't get a nomination for Uncut Gems. That would be a totally different movie. Just because I've heard the direction and that's phenomenal. Probably gonna watch that tomorrow, so I'm excited for that. Original score, 1917, Joker, Little Women, Marriage Story, Rise of Skywalker. I would have included Alan Silvestri in there for Avengers Endgame, just because especially the last act of the film, kind of the climax, I feel like some of the music in that was phenomenal. While Marvel movies aren't known for having the most incredible scores, I feel like he did a really good job of kind of blending together a lot of different themes. And honestly, without the music, I don't think that sequence would have been nearly as epic as it obviously turned out to be. Visual effects, Avengers Endgame, Lion King, Rise of Skywalker, The Irishman, 1917. Pretty damn solid list. Honestly, as much as I hate to admit it, The Lion King is probably the standout. That's probably the only thing that movie had going for it. Was not a fan of that film by any means, but it was pretty much just a showcase for visual effects and how far the technology has come. And I think it makes more sense here than in the Golden Globes nomination where they nominated it for Best Animated Feature. It doesn't really count as an animated feature because all of the backgrounds and environments are real. But there's no real people, so I get it's kind of in a weird category. But when I saw that it was in Best Animated Feature, I was like, what? You've got to be kidding me. And then The Irishman, apart from a couple weird floaty head looking scenes, I feel like The Irishman was a huge leap forward for visual effects technology. The fact that they were able to go through and do the de-aging process without actually sticking any of the markers on their face, and it was a lot less intrusive for Martin Scorsese as a director, and for the actors. You know, they were able to give the performances that they needed to without all that extra shit in there. Obviously, Avengers Endgame and Star Wars had thousands of visual effects shots a piece. Either of those would be worthy of winning as well. So that's a hard category. That's kind of the list of the nominations. I'll probably do a separate video where I break down my predictions for who I think is going to win this year. Honestly, my biggest takeaway was Joker getting nominated in 11 categories was extremely surprising, and I feel like it's a good step forward for the genre because typically comic book movies do not get nominated. They don't get that type of recognition. We usually get a visual effects nomination or maybe best editing, costume design, kind of the secondary categories. It was leading with 11 nominations. It was also really cool to see that Parasite, being a Korean film, is getting all the recognition that it is. I know some people were disappointed that Greta Gerwig wasn't nominated for Little Women. I haven't seen the movie yet, and she very well might have been snubbed. I don't know if it's really comes down to the Academy being sexist. When it comes down to it, the quality of film should speak for itself. It shouldn't be about just having to have diversity for diversity's sake. Gender, race shouldn't come into it at all. And I don't, as much as I think it's messed up to not nominate somebody's great work because they're female, I think it's just as ridiculous to nominate somebody just because they're female or just because, you know, they fill this race quota for the Academy. So anyway, sure, everybody has a different opinion about that, but when it comes down to it, they're judging movies, they're judging the quality of movie, and that's really what needs to speak for itself. The 92nd Academy Awards will air February 9th, so we will see then who goes home with the gold. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you can, I'm trying to be a lot more consistent about getting content out there, so if you would subscribe to my channel and like this video so I know I'm not completely wasting my time, I would very much appreciate that. And I hope you all have a great rest of your week.